Clark Lee says, shorten the game. I want less than 10 possessions.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. So Vandy comes into this matchup as huge underdogs, 24.5 points to be exact. So anything they can do to shorten the game gives them a chance to compete and possibly win. Clark Lee was on the Commodore Hour earlier today as I record this on a Monday. He said, quote, okay, and this is he said a lot of good things in this media session, but here's the one thing that really stood out to me right here. He says, quote, we're going to try and shorten the game. I want less than 10 possessions. All three phases have to contribute to that. Okay. And so this is a really good strategy against an explosive offense. This is something that they wanted to do against Missouri as well. And it's one of those things where like Missouri has a really dynamic, talented, explosive wide receiver in Luther Burden. They wanted to try to keep him off the field as well. Same goes for Ryan Williams. Extremely explosive wide receiver to pair with an extremely explosive quarterback with a very dynamic run game. So how do you beat that? How do you stop that? Well, the offense can't score if they're not on the field. So that's what Clark Lee means when he says he wants to shorten the game. So where does that start? It's got to start offensively, okay? This is where Diego Pavia, this is where Tim Beck, this is where this offense really starts to earn its money, okay? They really start to earn this here because in order for them to shorten the game, they have to get first downs. If they don't get first downs, they go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Bama has more plays. Bama has more opportunities. Bama's going to put up their yards. Bama's going to make their plays. Jalen Milroe is going to make his plays. Ryan Williams is going to make his plays. It's going to happen. All right, what they have to do is limit those opportunities. So offensively, how they can do that, and I'll talk defensively, how they'll give themselves a chance to kind of compete. But offensively, what they have to do is they're going to have to figure out a way to move the chains. Okay, they have to get at least 2 to 3 first downs. Even if they don't score points every single time they touch the ball, which would be amazing if they did, but they don't have to. They need to control the clock. That's the most important thing. Control the clock, get the points as they come. Do not miss your opportunities to get points because points are going to be at a premium. You need every point you can get, but also understand that controlling the clock is in your favor. So one of the things they can do, one of the things that they have to do is really stick to their identity, okay? They're an option team. They're an option football team. They need to take advantage of that. They need to, because Bama's going to come out. Bama's a very aggressive defense. They're going to fly at you. They got a lot of talented people over there. They're going to fly around. What Vandy can do to disrupt that a little bit is to get their option game going. They have tons of variations. They have pre-snap motions. They have a lot of things that work in their favor that obviously have given teams like Missouri fits, Virginia Tech fits. When they finally woke up, Georgia State couldn't really stop it. And then, of course, Alcorn State. I kind of just throw that game out there because Alcorn is not very good. But they get their option game going. They have variations. They have things that put defenders in conflict. They have things that confuse their keys as far as who becomes quarterback, who becomes the first option, second option, third option, how they get there. They run the jet power read as well. I mean, they do a lot of things in option football that give them chances to be able to get out on the edge. And if they want to make their yards, that's where they're going to make their yards. Putting edge players in conflict, putting them in space where Diego Pavia is actually really good at breaking tackles, making guys miss. He's actually really good in space. He can slide through and get 5 yards when there's nothing there. He can break a big run down the sideline. He's athletic enough to be able to do a lot of things that you see Jalen Milroe doing in the run game. He's able to do a lot of those things, and obviously he's not as big and explosive as Jalen Milroe. I don't think really many people are, if any, at this level. But he is certainly capable of really commanding this option game and putting those guys in a bind. So in order to get that going, you have to be on point. The offensive line is going to have the best game of their life. Diego Pavia is going to have to be on point with his reads, and some of these other guys are going to have to start contributing. So that's the first thing. Get the option game going. Okay, get it going. So move guys, force them to play in space, stretch them horizontally, get them to reveal, get them to create some run lanes on their own. Because if they can do that, then Vandy will have a chance to move the ball. If they can move the ball, they can help control the clock and shorten the game. All right. They want Bama to have less than 10 possessions, and they want to hold the ball. They want their possessions to be able to count. So get the option game going. That's your identity. You want to get that going anyway if you're going to be successful throughout the course of the season. What better way to start than to do it against Bama? So that's key number one. Okay, that's how in the first place they're going to be able to get this clock controlled. Okay. Second thing. Okay, you've got to win on first down. If you don't win on first down, defense takes the advantage. Second and long, not good. Second and medium or less is where you want to be as an offense. You want to stay on schedule. You want to win first down. Stay out of third and longs. That means penalties. Stop getting stupid penalties, the pre-snap penalties, the motion penalties, the illegal formation penalties, those things that you can control. Stop getting those penalties. The holds are going to come. That's going to happen. That's football. You're going to hold. So I'm not mad about that. Sometimes the timing of these holds are frustrating, but I understand it happens. But try to limit the backbreaking penalties. Like you're sitting in 3rd and 5, you're in good shape, and next thing you know, you jump off sides, and here it is, 3rd and 10. So those things are things that are drive killers, and those drive killers actually give momentum back to the other team. And Alabama's a team that can certainly take advantage of those momentum opportunities. They're not a team that's going to let many of those squander. You've seen it. All right. So limit the penalties, win on first down, avoid 3rd and long. Okay. Because Bama is super talented, especially in the cylinder of their defense with the safeties down to the inside linebackers, down to the interior defensive linemen. Those guys can really wreak havoc. So if you can stay out of 3rd and long, they can pin their ears back and come get you on 3rd and long. So stay out of it. Stay in command, because you have your entire playbook on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4. Unless you have everything at your disposal in those type of situations. Not saying Bama can't defend those situations, but your odds are a lot better. And if you can just bleed the clock, you pick up first downs better that way. So win on first down, avoid 3rd and long, avoid stupid penalties. Those are some of the keys. Okay. So field position, also take advantage of when you get into the scoring zones. Take advantage of when you can pin Bama deep and make them drive the field. But also, just offensively, you just have to, you have to be able to hit on some of these quick passes. You have to be able to take advantage. Like these corners, one of the things I noticed about these corners, they're super talented. So don't get me wrong on that. They are super talented. But again, the experience, although it's building, is still not quite there. There's still a learning curve with those guys out there on the outside. Georgia, unfortunately, in the first half, wasn't able to take advantage of it. They did take advantage of it in the second half, nearly won the game, but couldn't fully take advantage of the inexperience out there on the perimeter. Vandy has to have a plan that's going to take advantage of those guys, whether it's throwing quick screens out there and making those guys fight through blocks and make tackles, especially on the big tight ends like Cole Spence and Eli Stowers. Quincy Skinner's a tough runner. So like if you force those guys to tackle over and over again, you know how it is with cornerbacks and tackling. Like they don't really want to do that a whole lot. So make those guys tackle. And Bama probably has the most physical corners in the entire country. So I'm hoping they get tired, but it's likely. I want to give them the chance to prove to me that they enjoy tackling from quarter one to quarter four. So I want to give them that opportunity to prove that. And I think that we should. So you have to be able to attack those guys. You have to be able to move the pocket. You have to be able to get Diego Pavia clean throws to really put pressure on those corners out there. The safeties are much better than the corners. And I'm going to, as the week goes on, we're going to get more specific breakdowns on personnel. Right now, I'm just hitting the 30,000 foot view of position groups. So that's kind of my plan. Just kind of bear with me on the names. I'm going to get to specific matchups probably on tomorrow's episode. Kind of some players to watch out for on Bama's side. Right now, I want to focus on Vandy, and right now I want to focus on Vandy's offense versus Bama's defense as a whole. And then we'll start to get into individual X factors on Bama's defense, and then of course on Bama's offense. But that's what you got to do. You got to put pressure on the corners. You got to force those guys to tackle. You got to force them to run. Anytime you can get those defensive linemen running laterally, they don't like that, right? You got to get them running laterally, screens, motions, all kind of things to really kind of mess with their perception will benefit you. And you need everything you can have to benefit you in this game, because it's going to be rough. So what we're going to do, all right, I'm going to continue this conversation because I think there's some play calling aspects that Tim Beck needs to take advantage of. We'll talk about that next. All right, this episode is presented by Roy. It's time to highlight my Roy Player of the Week. It's the bye week, so is there really one? Not yet, but I'm going to say Joseph McVay for now, because he got his first touchdown as a Vanderbilt Commodore. So against Mizzou 2 weeks ago. So Roy is the new platform that lets its fans contributions directly to their favorite athletes. Download Roy for iOS or Android and enter referral code Locked On, and you'll automatically be entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. This week we selected Joseph McVay because he had his first touchdown as a Vanderbilt Commodore. He had a big 65-yard pass caught for a touchdown to start the scoring for Vanderbilt on the road against Missouri. Huge moment there. So we're giving Joseph McVay $100 on Roy. If you're impressed as we were with his performance 2 Saturdays ago, because last week was a bye week, you can show him love too. So just hop on Roy and throw in a few bucks. Everyone pitches in. It's just $10, and it adds up fast for Joseph McVay. And now you have the chance to show your appreciation for Joseph McVay and his standout performance against Missouri, as well as what he'll continue to bring our program. So get off the sidelines and into the NIL game with Roy. Support the players. All right, welcome back. It is the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. Shout out to you everydayers. This is amazing what you guys are doing. You guys are bringing a new dimension to this program. Keep it up. Keep coming along. Okay. This show is growing, and I appreciate every second of it. And this is the appreciation is greatly. So continue with the offense here against Bama and what they need to do. Like, I gave you some general things, but honestly, Tim Beck is going to be the X factor here. Okay. Diego Pavia obviously will be, because he's the quarterback and he's actually executing the plays on the field. But what Tim Beck is going to be cooking up this week is going to determine whether or not this is, 59-0 at halftime, or something that where Vandy is competitive and they're moving the ball and they're controlling the clock until Bama's depth takes over. But regardless, Tim Beck is going to be the key to all this, because preparation, game planning, things like that, he has the ability to set Bama's defense up to be able to move the ball. So some of the things that he's going to have to do, pre-snap motions, things like that are vital to what Vandy does, because they have to move the strength of the formation. They have to find a way to gain leverage, gain numbers advantages, things like that. Put put defenders in a bind, formation them to where he's putting guys that shouldn't be on an island, trying to open up formations to where they have to identify coverage, or their blitzers become a little bit more clear. Anytime you condense the sets, it kind of gives you a disadvantage. So anything he can do to move away from that, or motion into different looks, and kind of do his best to confuse Bama's defense as far as what they bring to the table and what they're about to hit with. Because early on, it was just getting used to. I think the first 4 games was just kind of getting a groove within the system, trying to get things perfected, trying to figure out what they're doing within the scheme, how they wanted to set up the option stuff, getting Diego Pavia comfortable, trying to integrate both backs into the scheme with Cedric Alexander and AJ Newberry, like doing things to help this offense kind of move forward is the key to what Tim Beck wants to do. And now that they've taken that first step, now he can start opening things up formation wise, having multiple plays out of the same look, having multiple plays that look the same at the start, but end up being different things, like things that put Vandy's defense in conflict, all to be able to run their option stuff. Like their base stuff is their option stuff. So they need to use that to set up the counter stuff, and the counter stuff to further solidify what they do in the option game. That's important, right? So like having 2 or 3 things off of the jet motion, where you give the jet, then you fake the jet, run the quarterback power, then you read it. With the defensive end is always wrong. Then you play action it, where you can take a shot play, or you play action it and you can sprint out. Like you can do different things off of just that jet action that can really put Bama's defense in a bind, because they're very aggressive, and they may just pin their ears back and say, okay, you know what? We're not going to try to scheme you. We're just going to try to outplay you with our talent. And that's something that Bama can do to its advantage in this game. That's something they feel like they can do because they have a superior roster. I mean, just look at the recruiting rankings, just look at the rosters and the NFL ready players. It's obvious. So I'm not saying anything that nobody doesn't know, but that, using that concept to their advantage, they may try to overwhelm Vandy, whereas Vandy can take advantage of some of that aggressiveness and some of that lack of preparation, where maybe they don't respect Vandy as an opponent, or respect them as much as they should. Vandy can maybe take advantage of that. So getting the option game going, sprinting out with Pavia, getting themselves in formidable looks to be able to do things, breaking tendency, and then hitting them with the option, hitting them with their base triple option, hitting them with some of their other option looks where they flare the back and it's a quarterback draw option, or they reverse the mesh points where it's guy comes in orbit motion, and they do some other things where they kind of switch the quarterback becomes the pitch guy, and there's some other things that happen in that regard. So I'm excited to kind of see what Tim Beck has cooked up, because Diego Pavia is a guy that can execute all this. He has the moxie to do so. He has the intelligence to do so. He knows the scheme. He knows how to. The key for Pavia is going to be, okay, now he's shown that he can do it. He's shown that he can perform within this offense. Now he's got to show that he can pull other guys with him, and that's going to be the second X factor within this whole thing. Tim Beck being able to confuse the defense is the biggest X factor. Him being able to set the defense up for failure, put guys in conflict, things like that, forcing them to tackle in space, putting pressure on them as he tries to control the tempo. That's another thing. But all of those things have to happen. And it's just going to have to be one of those situations where the freaking stars align. Because of the talent discrepancy, it's going to be one of those things where the stars have to align for Vandy to be able to jump in there and move the ball consistently and effectively. But they have a chance to do it. They have the schemes to do it. They have the right guy to be able to mix things up as a dynamic play caller to be able to do so. Now it's just going to be on Pavia and some of these other guys to emerge as playmakers, like Quincy Skinner. He's going to have to emerge as a major factor in the passing game. It's going to be getting Cole Spence involved. He's 6'7", 260 pounds as a tight end. Like, get him involved. He's a matchup nightmare. He can you can throw the ball to him and you can get him involved. Eli Stowers is a dynamic tight end guy. You have a 12 personnel package that allows you some dynamic stuff in the pass game, and you can be effective in the run game with those guys in because they are capable blockers as well. Getting in some 20 personnel with Newberry and Cedric Alexander both in the game at the same time, doing things in the option game to where you can mix things up, right? Getting those guys involved, getting Junior Sherrill in the slot, putting him in more in his natural element in the slot, and getting Joseph McVay some looks outside. Maybe you go with some of those personnel packages, getting him involved as well. But moving these guys around, jetting these guys, just putting these guys in scenarios to where they are in advantageous situations where they have leverage. They have, Vandy's got, if Vandy can hit it on the option game, maybe Bama won't blitz as much. They will stay in more base coverages probably as a result, and they'll get some looks that allow them to do some pretty funky stuff. And Bama in the past has, I won't say struggle, and I say it with relativity. They've struggled more with option offenses than they have standard spread attacks because they know how to play that kind of stuff. So those are some things offensively that I think they can do. Tim Beck is going to be a major, major X factor coming into this game. And then once kickoff starts, Diego Pavia executing this game plan to perfection will be the next X factor in why Vandy could give themselves a chance, because they're a much improved ball club. That's obvious. And how improved, I don't know if they're improved enough to beat Bama or even compete with Bama, because it's a 24-point spread. And for a reason, because Bama showed why it's a 24.5-point spread, because they just dismantled Georgia. And I know it was a close game, but essentially they dismantled Georgia. And so they proved their side of it. Now Vandy has to prove that, hey, we belong in the SEC. They've proved it against Missouri. They have to go out and prove it week in and week out against the likes of Bama, Kentucky, Texas down the road, but and the other teams on the schedule. So this will be a fun one. But defense is going to come through huge in this one. How do they stop? How do they limit Alabama? How do they contribute in this shortening of the game? Special teams as well. We'll talk about that next. This episode is presented by FanDuel. That's right. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, check out the play-by-play. There's parlay builders. There's all kind of live bets, everything like that. And you do all of that and much more on the same page where you place your bets. All right, so you can get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sports book. All right, welcome back. We are wrapping up the show here on the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. Make sure you check out Locked On SEC as your next listen, and listen to Chris Gordy and every week when they have the SEC roundup. It's going to be a fun. It's going to be a fun atmosphere. It's going to be a fun week for Vandy. They welcome the #1 team in the country. They get to host that and get their crack at the #1 team in the country. And Alabama's going to be a fun team to watch. So this is going to be exciting. They're exciting enough on defense. They fly around, they get after you, they cover well, they play with a lot of swagger still. But offensively is where they're really explosive. Jalen Milroe is as good as any quarterback in the country. My two favorite quarterbacks right now in this country are Jalen Milroe and Cam Ward. I think they're extremely talented. And this is obviously outside of Diego Pavia. Diego Pavia is very exciting to watch for Vandy. But these other two also, I love these other two quarterbacks. They bring a lot to the table. And so with that, they bring explosive plays. And Ryan Williams is an amazing wide receiver. And there's got to be things that Vandy has to do to be able to limit these two from doing what they do, make explosive plays and rack up yards and points. Right. So the offense is going to do their part. Right. So let's say the offense has done their part. They've sustained long drives, long possessions, things like that. They shortened the game. The special teams has taking advantage of point scoring opportunities by hitting field goals when they get chances to hit field goals in the punting game, being able to pin Bama deep and be able to flip field position, kickoff coverage, punt coverage, all that stuff has to be on point, right? Let's say everyone's done their job. Now it's on the defense. Okay. Now the defense has to limit explosive plays. That is goal number one. Okay. If against any explosive offense, and this was true against Missouri. Missouri struggled at times when they couldn't get massive chunks on Missouri's scoring plays or scoring drives. They were shorter with more chunk plays. The drives they didn't score on and the opportunities that they squandered and the momentum that they squandered were situations to where they had to drive. They had to drive the football. They had to move. They had to get 3 yards, 4 yards, 2 yards. They had to grind and grind and grind. And that's not how Missouri's offense is built. That's not how Bama's offense is built. Bama's offense is not a grinder's offense. And when you force them to grind, that's when they get frustrated. That's when they get antsy, and that's when they get impatient. So when you force them to grind like that, they have to make play after play after play after play after play. And an offense built on explosion is not a good situation for them to be in, right? I think part of what South Florida was able to do with them on some of their drives was to make them drive the ball. And so if Vandy can do that, it eats up clock. So if they're grinding away a drive, if they're going to score on a 13-play drive, so be it, right? They're going to get their yards. They're explosive. They're a good team. They're going to get their points, right? Make them do it on a 12, 13, 14-play drive that eats up 6-7 minutes, right? Because it gives Vandy a chance to be able to keep this thing close enough within striking distance to give themselves a chance in the end. And that's all against the number one team in the country. When you're Vanderbilt, that's all you want at this point. Okay. That's what you want. You want a chance. You want a chance to compete because good things happen, right? They got that chance against Missouri, almost got it. It's very promising. Now I don't believe in moral victories, but it shows that there's a lot of promise within this team. Okay. It's not a moral victory, but it is a massive step in the right direction. And that's what you're looking for as a team that's trying to gain confidence, as a program that's trying to build a culture and change an entire victim mindset, as Clark Lee called it in his Commodore Hour, trying to get over this victim mindset, I think is something that's going to move this program forward. And if they can do that, that's going to help them massively in the long run. So when you look at this, when you look at making them drive, you have a chance. And if you can hang and show you belong with Alabama, you can certainly do it throughout the rest of your schedule. And you can certainly go on to have a very successful season and then likely a successful season beyond, because you're starting to build something, right? And if you can't, well, it's going to be much of the same. And I think that, as the team starts to develop that mentality, the fans will start to develop that mentality of, hey, we're competing, we're getting there. We just need to keep grinding. So for this defense, they need to frustrate Bama. They have to limit the explosive plays. They have to force them to grind the ball and drive the ball down the field, right? To stop a guy like Ryan Williams, well, that's a formula I would like to see, right? We have a physics teacher at the school I teach at that does physics problems for fun. He's probably writing one right now on how to stop Ryan Williams, and I don't think he's done yet, because that dude is a machine, right? That dude is a physics problem. That spin move he put, holy cow. But he's 17 years old, and he's not the only explosive receiver that's ever played college football. So there is ways to stop and limit those guys, okay? And obviously limiting the source of his plays, and Jalen Milroe is a big step in the right direction. But how you defend him, how you frustrate him, how you force him to run through traffic, how you just don't let up on him, right? If you get chances to knock him around, if you can touch him, if you get chances to knock him around, you have to pinball him. He comes off the line. And when I say cushion, I'm not talking about 10 yards of cushion to let him get a full head of steam and like a 5-way go when he gets to you. I'm also talking about not getting up in his face, because he's good enough and quick enough to leave you lunging at the line and you look like a fool and he's running wide open down behind you. It's enough cushion to where you can kind of funnel him where you want him to go. You can be physical with him because he's establishing more of a path when he comes off the ball. If you're sitting at 2 to 3 yards instead of 8, or right in his face, like you can have him established so you can reroute, get hands on and things like that. You have better chances to get hands on him and be physical with him if you give him a little bit of cushion. Okay, that's one thing. So you got to limit his opportunities, and you got to be more physical with him. And of course, you got to force Bama to drive the ball. But time flies when you're having fun. We'll get more into like specifics on what you can do to frustrate Bama from a defensive perspective, and how to exploit some matchups, and what matchups are going to be a problem, what matchups are going to be favorable in this game. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow. And we'll continue this thing. And I'm trying to get Jake Thomas on from Tide Talk Live. Maybe he'll shed some more light on how Bama plays and things like that. So we'll talk about all that tomorrow. But until then, we'll see you back. We'll see you when I see you. Behave yourselves, and of course, anchor down. Thanks for the support at Locked On Vandy, Locked On Vandy podcast. Peace.